Welcome to Love and Growth Podcast. My name's Jason. This is Danielle, and we appreciate you coming into our show. I feel like it's been forever since we did this.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute. Life has been fun.
Yeah. Our oldest graduated high school.
Yeah, I figured let's just go through. Let's go through a catch up period.
Our life events that.
Yeah, a little bit of a catch up period because I think the idea is we've gone through some stuff and we had to go through some changes and some growth things that kind of happened on the spur of the moment that we weren't ready for.
Yeah.
I don't know if we weren't ready for it. We had the tools for it. We weren't prepared for it.
Expecting.
That's a good one. So first things first, our oldest graduated high school. That was an emotional roller coaster.
Yes, a very emotional roller coaster. I guess I could just get into a little bit of that. So
yeah, might as well.
I was 16 when I had him, and for a very long time, it was just him and I raised him by myself until he was 8 when we met you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 8 when we started dating, and until then, it was just him and I. And one of my big milestones was that I was determined to finish high school. Like, that was my goal that I gave myself when I had him. I'm going to have him. I'm going to finish high school. And it kind of came full circle with him graduating.
Yeah.
It was almost like a whole chapter has closed.
Yeah.
Like, literally, like, life has come full circle at that point.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great day for you guys. I mean, the emotion you guys got to let out together was really, it was good to see because I think it's a big accomplishment for anybody to actually see something all the way through. I mean, let's face it, 90% of people today don't finish things. So for him to actually go through that after just everything that we've gone through and everything that he's had to overcome and grow from, and high school's not easy on kids, and nowadays high school's just
no. And he
shit.
went. I mean, in that time, he was put into situations he shouldn't have been put into, and he had to go through my life. So he had to go through my previous relationships. He had to go through moving multiple times, and then we, packed up and moved to Florida, and so it was like. And then he did start high school in a new place because we did move again.
A lot.
But the moving where we are now and him to attend high school, that was to give him a better place to be. And it was a lot. And I think, I say that him graduating is like, he's my biggest accomplishment. So having him have that moment, and you got a video of this where the first time I saw him after his graduation ceremony, he just came and basically like collapsed on me and just sobbed, and I'm sobbing, of course. And he just says to me, like, "I did it, mommy." And it was like, I was crying so hard that I couldn't even get out, like, "I'm so proud of you." Because I was just crying, like, because I was so, so proud in that moment.
Yeah. That's a tough moment. Like, you never know how you're going to react in that kind of situation with everything. And I think that was a big, not a milestone per se. Like, that was climbing a mountain. Forget milestone. Like, everything that went into getting to that moment was big.
Mm-hmm.
Between the moves and him going through things and you going through things and us going through things. I think that was, that's beyond a milestone. And I think for you guys to be able to celebrate that together, just in that moment alone, let alone the rest of the time, because that was filled with all sorts of stuff too. But like, that moment alone was big.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It was like more than a milestone because it was like our whole life has led up to that point. Like, I needed to raise him. I needed to get him through this. But he also needed to do that.
Right.
So it was my story and his story and carrying it together. And then it was like, it's really the end of an era almost.
Yeah. It's the start of something new.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the the nice part, and I think that's something that we talk about with each other, but we don't really put that into big perspectives with big events like that. We think back, we're like, oh, we graduated high school, you get this, oh, you did that, you did this. But being in the moment in that thing, and then the kind of the flashback that goes through it is big.
Yeah.
And I think, I was glad I was able to capture it on camera, I think, but I was also glad that I was able to witness it and not have to feel like I needed to be a part of that, or, everybody else was kind of in the car. I mean, it was a big cluster show to begin with, but like everybody else was in the car. So it was like, you guys got to have that piece,
That moment.
and I was far enough away that it didn't have to interrupt anything. And I think, I was blessed to be able to be in that moment and just kind of witness it.
Yeah. I mean, that's my favorite video to watch. So, I mean, I'm very thankful that because I was like, oh, I knew I was going to cry. Like, obviously, moms cry. But I didn't expect his reaction.
Yeah.
And you were like, no, I knew it. And that's why I started to record.
Oh, 100%.
And for you to allow us that moment, I think that speaks volumes as well. Like you said, like you got to witness it and just be present and not feel like you had to be involved in it, but then also not feel like, oh, well, I'm an outsider here. Right. Because that was something that you used to feel like was like, oh, it's you and him and I'm the outsider.
Yeah.
So to be able to have that moment and have you give us that moment right. without that feeling of being an outsider, more of a feeling of like, I'm a husband and a father, and this is an amazing moment for the two of them.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's you bring up a lot of big things that we went through in our journey together, and I think that's kind of what put us, all those struggles is what put us where we are now, in the sense of like, we have to be the priority because we were not the priority for a long time. Not saying that was good or bad at the moment, but that's what we had to deal with. That was the situation
we had. Right. We didn't know any better. We had to learn through it. We had to figure out like what is normal for us. How do we function as a blended family? How do we go from having somebody feel like an outsider to everybody being together? That's
super hard. I'm sure it was super hard for you too, but it's definitely super hard for me because it's like, because he was so much older, it was like stepping into a whole, like you guys had something, and to feel like you belonged and everything like that. Like I know, when you blend families, it gets difficult, but to experience it and go through it is a big thing. And then to really dedicate the time and effort to us to grow together, but still as a unit together. Like, we're still top of the priority key, and then, the family comes together, but, to be able to get that far and then experience that day because we didn't have family in town. We had a lot of family in town for it. But for each person to be able to get their moment and their time and their attention and their this and their that, not just with him, but just in general. I think it was interesting to watch components of how people interact.
Yeah.
And especially I would say for us, because we are so, I'd say at times very inflexible with the way that we are, because we hold true to a lot of strong non-negotiables.
Yeah, we have a lot of strong non-negotiables, and we're very much into our routines and our way of life because it is just us here.
It's
right. Like it's just our immediate family right here. Like immediate meaning the two of us and our children.
Right.
Both of our families are 1,000 miles away.
Yeah.
So we are literally like on an island, and sometimes it's very hard to bend our lifestyle and our routines when people come in.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because we're so used to just having us, just relying on us, and just knowing how we work, how we function, that when outsiders, right? I mean, outsiders for the sake of proximity, right?
Yeah.
Come in, it's like, oh, whoa, hold on. I don't know how to share my space.
Well, share your space, share your routine, share just everything. I mean, it's incredible to have family here because we don't get it that often.
Right. We do love having them here.
Right. No, it's not that, but yeah, there's something to be said where it's like to go through the fire of saying like, this is what we're building, this is how we do things, this is where we're at, this is where we're at, and then to have outside forces come in is such a test because it's like, how much do you bend? How much do you not bend? How much do you give? How much do you take? Like it makes it so difficult, and it's so easy to just. I'd say for most people, it's so easy to just be like, well, just forget it. Like, let's just do anything. And I think, I think there's a part of that needs to happen where you have to be flexible enough to let other things happen because it's, they don't live that way.
Right.
And you can't hold that against them by retreating from all of it. But there's also got to be a point where it's like, this is the way we live.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you still have to have those boundaries to say like, this is here, this is here. We don't do this, we don't do that.
Right.
I'd say finding that balance was very difficult for us on this roundabout. And I believe it was that way because, and I again, just floating off my head, I think it was that way because of the emotion that was involved in the moment. With like going through that transition of that's such a pivotal point in his life and things that were led up to it, like I think we got very emotionally invested instead of being able to see things calculated and clear like we typically do, and just that kind of creeped up on us a lot.
Yeah, I think with the emotion of it, like you said, like preparing to it because he got done school a week before. So it was like we went to his senior walkout, and then he had another event to go to. He had awards.
He had a lot of. He had a couple of awards nights. He had the walkout. He had the party at school.
The party, yeah, and then he had the rehearsal. And we were having family come in, and it was like family came in at the beginning of the week, family came in at the middle of the week, family was here. So like, I think having multiple family here and the schedule and the graduation and then it was like,
It was a lot of moving parts, and I think that was a big thing that kind of put us in a place where it was like, this is going to stress us. This is going to test us. And I think, we did have some back and forth when things were tough. And I think the best part about it is we were still a unit at the end. Like we went through some battles through it because
we did,
emotions got really heavy.
Right. And we got to a point where we were both like, wait, time out. Like just time out with each other. Yeah. Like, okay, here's where it is. Like, we are not connected right now. We are bickering back and forth. And it was like, so this needs to stop. Yep. So we collectively took a time out and said, like, hold on, we need us back.
Yeah, we took a big time out. I think it was needed. And I think that's something where I think that even looking at that and being able to say, hey, we need to take a time out real fast when in the middle of chaos is something we wouldn't have done previously. I think that's something we would have just let everything happen and dealt with it after everybody left and things calmed down, and then we would have fired that thing back up again and went at it. But being able to take that, and I think I'm going to go back to, I know we've talked about it before, like the certainty that we took in each other to just be like, hey, we have to fix this. Like, we have to talk about this now.
Yeah.
I think that echoes true because the kids get it too. Like the kids see it happen. They're like, well, mom and dad have date night tonight. So things like it's regardless of family coming in, they understand like this is how it's handled. This is how things go. So like the kids are already programmed to, which is great because even in chaos like that, like they still know what's going on.
Yeah.
They know when we take a time out, they still like, that's how we operate.
Well, even my mom knew. Like, she came down. She was like, I know I'm staying with you guys, but I know Tuesday is date night, so don't let me hold you back. Yeah. Like, she anticipated, like, Tuesday is date night. And then, your parents' last day happened to be on a Tuesday.
Right.
So we all went out together.
Yeah.
And then later that week, we had a time for
We had our own time. Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's, again, it goes back to non-negotiables, and I think it taught that whole period. We were blessed to be able to have family here. I mean, we do take it for granted the fact of like, It's us. It's always
Yeah.
us. It's us. It's us. So to be able to have family come in and spend that time is great.
I think for Jordan, like it's a blessing to be able to have both grandparents there.
Yeah.
Not everybody gets both grandparents.
No, sure.
I think that's a really big blessing for him to be able to have that support system here for him.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's as stressful as it was and everything like that. It's. I love when family comes in.
Yeah,
because
it's stressful, but it is helpful. Like
super helpful. It's super helpful.
So
but
it's not all negative, but it
not.
is the chaos that ensues with just it's any time that you go to family reunions or you're going on vacation and there's it's always that with trying to find your rhythm.
Yeah, but it's a family reunion for 10 days straight.
Yeah.
I think that's the different way to look at it. It's not just, you don't just show up for the day and go, oh, great, Thanksgiving was done. I'm full. I'm going home. Like, you rinse, lather, repeat the next day. And I think for us, it's hard because we operate on such a strict schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And I think another problem for us was we just redid
our schedule
right before this happened. So with the redoing not being set in stone yet, and then the chaos, it threw everything for a loop for us to just be like, we have to talk, we have to get this done, like dial this in, get back. And I think it was a big growing curve for us, and it was an awesome experience for him. The baby had her birthday. We did a little bit while the grandparents were here to let her have it. Probably the only child on earth that doesn't like cake or cookies.
No, she had a birthday donut.
So she had a birthday donut. So that was fun to get there. But I think for just overall it all, I think we learned a lot over this last time. And then, we took time for us to just figure out what are we doing? Where are we going?
Because it was like, it wasn't even anything in particular, but it was like work was thrown off, right? Because we had rehearsal for graduation, then we had graduation, then we had celebrations, then we had baby's birthday, then we had, so like you always get super stressed when work is off.
Yeah.
And so then I'm like, okay, but then this is like the baby needs to do this, or this needs to happen, or that needs to happen. And it's like, okay, psycho, calm down. It doesn't really need to happen. Me, I'm talking about myself now.
Of course.
But and that's hard for me to like relinquish control and be like, okay, do whatever you want.
Right.
And then I become a psychopath.
Yeah. And I think
that's where most of the bickering was coming from.
Right. Agreed. And I think that was also a learning curve in the sense where it's like, we need to have a little bit of that bend to be like, we don't have to have, this doesn't have to happen exactly now. Right. Like as much as it works for us, when we introduce other people, and I know this, at the time of recording, the summer's starting. So like some other family is actually planning on visiting. So it's like, we have to be a little bit more, it taught us we have to be a little bit more lenient with ourselves. We have to hold a little bit more grace and space for things to come up and things to happen, to operate a different way. And I know I'm so rigid with my time that I have to scale that back. And I know you're so rigid with what the kids are doing, when they're doing so like scaling that back and just being like, okay, we're going to, not full-fledged let everything go, but just be like, we'll bend a little bit and just like, let's have a little fun with it because,
we don't have family in town much.
We don't have.
So we need to enjoy when they're here and not stress when they're here. Right. And I think that's an us thing.
It's definitely us thing because we're the only people that can control it.
Right. So, but I mean, like you said, like for us to be able to pause in the moment and just say, you and I need to connect right now. Like that was a big step because otherwise, like we would have left that bickering. And because we've done this in the past, we would have kept bickering. Mm-hmm. And then the moment we were alone, I would have flown off the handle.
Yeah. Choice words left and right. And we would have gone after it. I think it's a big thing to be able to go through that. And I think even after that, because I know, we had to spend some time. It sounds so weird. Like it's almost like you have to take a vacation from your vacation. So family came, we had to take a vacation for us again. But I think, that time was really special for us because after that, everything changed. Mm-hmm. He's graduated high school.
Right. Like he's
Like
done.
he's now done school. It changes the schedule.
Again.
It changes the responsibilities. It changes what's going to happen next. And I think it took us some time to go through, because now what happened was it also changes the dynamics of everything. We're still the priority, but now it's like, okay, so now we have another person in the house full time. We have, the baby full time. You're here. I'm here. We're all trying to put, where are we going to be designating all the growth now? Like, where are we spending our time? Podcasting to come back. What's the messaging for the podcast? My podcast is starting. What's the messaging for the podcast? Coaching group is growing. Like, what's going to be, and I want to call it like a refocus back to clarity.
Yeah. And I definitely would say, like, we had a lot of moving parts, like, in our refocus, and in, like, we made a lot of changes.
Yeah. There was a lot of priorities had to shift, because, and it's funny, without him graduating high school, it wouldn't have gotten so clear as to what the next step is. We wouldn't have gone through that restructuring and just being like, okay, well, this is where he's going next. This is what, we are doing. This stays the priority. This stays the priority. But then we add X, Y, and Z. Then we have to start driving these. So what skill sets, what resources, what assets do we need to make these things happen? And it changes the whole dynamic. And I think it's one of the hardest processes we've gone through so far with our growth.
Yeah.
Because now everything's shifted.
Right. And for me, I feel like almost that I can let go of part of me. Like, I used to hold on to the stories of, oh, well, I was a single mom. Oh, well, I was a teenage mom. Oh, well, I raised him, oh, well, I did. And I had to learn how to let that go and still be me. Like, the things I've gained from that, my strength and getting through everything, like, that will always stay with me.
Yeah.
But I don't have to hold on to those stories anymore. And it's almost like with him graduating, I can let that go.
But I think that also started the process of, my thought is like, then the next process is, well, who am I now?
Right.
Because that identity is now gone. Not gone, but moved on from.
But it was something, right, because I used to hold on to that for so long. And now that it's like, oh, I accomplished it. Like,
it's a win.
It's there. Like, it's done. It's okay. So now what? And then I even just said to you, like, literally today, that I can't expect excellence from you if I'm living mediocre.
Oof. Ouch.
And I think that, like, actually saying those words to you, I realized that I was an anchor to you at some point, and now I'm like, no, I am expecting excellence from you. So that means I need to raise my standards.
Let's dive deeper into that, because I think that's a big thing for couples now to think about, because everybody's on the big self-help, mental health, like personal development. I mean, not everybody, because you can see where everybody's at in this world. But I think with that being said, leveling that up together or setting expectations of each other is tough.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest things, you being able to say that and being able to put that in perspective now sets a new expectation of both of us.
Right. And that's where, I kept scrolling past, like, on social media. I followed Dana Lynn Valley, and she put out this challenge. And at first I saw it, and I was like, no, not for me. And then it kept coming up, and I'm like, no. And then I finally was like, but why? Yeah. Like, why can't I? And so then I was like, babe, I'm going to do the challenge.
Yeah.
And that was like my first step. I'm like, no, I'm going to do the challenge, because there's no reason that I can't do it. It's just some bullshit story that I'm saying.
Yeah, I remember you saying it to me, like, I think I want to do this. And I just didn't do it. Like,
Yeah, and then and I kept going like, but it's not you. Like I'm not. Well, I am now. But previously, if you would have told me, I would have been up and in the gym at 6 a.m. I would have told you were batshit crazy and laughed in your face.
literally.
But if I want to become more, and I want to become excellence to receive excellence,
Yep.
then I need to get out of my comfort zone and I need to step up. So that was my first thing. I'm like, physically, I'm stepping up. I'm going to do this challenge and completely get out of my comfort zone. And then that made me come to you and say, okay, babe, now I need a commitment from you to do something for your health. Mm-hmm. Because now it's like, ladies, listen, like, you hold the power for your husband. So if you're not pushing him to excellence, then who is? And if you're not living that way yourself, then why is he going to do it?
Yeah, I mean, that comes back to a lot of things. It was always, the growth journey of everything through Warrior and Lions Den and all the other coaching that I've been in. It's like, I've always wanted you to come with me, and I think it was.
And I refused.
You did. You're not a very. I can't say you're not. You're very reluctant to change for a long time, and I think seeing you go through it and start to make commitments and really following through with things is awesome. And that, again, that lights a fire for me to be like,